Hollywood writers are scared shitless right now. Apparently things are not going very well. There are no jobs out there. Aaron Sparrow, what did these morons think was going to happen when they started ruining all the franchises on the behalf of the fans and then went to bat and did these strikes and then got all these concessions that basically forced the studios to make less television?
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. I think they just thought that they had all this control and that the streaming services really needed them. They overplayed their hand, and you and I predicted that early on. We said, like, this is going to be catastrophic for the industry. They're going to think that they've won. The studios will let them think that, and then they're going to find out that there's a lot less jobs out there. There's a lot less places for them to go, and so they're going to be weeded out just by kind of the natural selection of less available resources. So, your Rick and Morty writers that were so huge 2 years ago, and Kevin Feige just wanted to give them the moon and let them take over the MCU. They're all going away, and Hollywood's looking back towards tried and true writers that have delivered in the past. There's just not a glut of content being produced because none of these streaming services have turned out to be profitable.
And I think what they've also noticed is that a lot of people don't like the spin of modern television or movies or any of that stuff, and they're just watching the old stuff anyway. It's the same thing that's going on in video games.
Yeah, everybody's going retro. Everybody's going back. There's so much entertainment out there, and we talked about it before. If Hollywood hadn't come back, if they were still striking right now, my life would be basically unaffected because there's so many shows that I can revisit. There's so many shows and movies that I've never watched. There's such a huge catalog out there of entertainment. There are novels that I've never read, comic books I've never read. There's all sorts of entertainment out there begging for your entertainment dollar. And a lot of it's a lot cheaper than, these streaming services are getting. And now they want to charge you for the streaming service, but then they also want to feed you ads. Well, that's not the way it works. If you feed me advertising, then I don't pay for a subscription. That's ridiculous. I will never give a streaming service $1 if they're also going to give me ads. That's not the way this works.
There's an article out on the Hollywood Reporter spelling this out. My favorite part is they're acting like they're completely oblivious to how all this stuff happened. It just all fell apart all at the same time. It starts out across the TV landscape. Buying has cooled dramatically, and many writers now find themselves unemployed, with opportunities shrinking as the industry shifts from peak TV to an era of contraction and austerity. A wave of downsizing that kicked off last year when the priorities of Wall Street changed from a focus on subscriber growth to profitability. As streamers like Netflix and Max right-size their slates, the broadcast pipelines through Peacock, Hulu, and Paramount Plus are drying up. A decade ago, broadcasters collectively ordered as many as 98 pilots. Today, that number can be counted on one hand.
Yeah, there was a point a few years ago where they were just giving money away to hacks and saying, just make something. Look at how much money they gave to J.J. Abrams. Max had that deal with him. I think it was under Walter Hamada, where they just handed J.J. Abrams a big ton of cash. And then we're like, well, what are you making? And turns out it was nothing. Turns out he wasn't making anything.
Supposed to be Justice League Dark, right?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it didn't happen. Amazon gave Phoebe Waller-Bridge a bunch of money to develop stuff. I mean, you might as well just take your money and throw it down the garbage disposal. What are you doing? So none of that shit got made. All that money was wasted. Some very untalented people made out like bandits. But yeah, didn't produce anything for the studios. So now you're seeing the adjustment based on all of that. Now people have to deliver. And unfortunately, most of the people that were out there striking, most of the people that were out there demanding 20 people in the writers' rooms, most of these DEI hires that get put into these rooms and contribute nothing of value or substance, they're finding out that they're not necessary, and that the studios aren't going to hire them. So what you're seeing is the studio signed a deal. Yeah, we'll give you all this stuff, but we're going to produce far less. And then in 3 years when your contract is up, we'll be able to say that you guys aren't worth as much because of how you haven't delivered, and we'll be able to cut your contract again.
Well, the good thing is, in the meantime, at least we got a brand new gay character in basically every television show imaginable. We got every straight white male father figure in television look like a moron. We finally got the black female Viking king that we always wanted. All these great ideas that have been percolating for years that just couldn't find the light of day, and all of a sudden everything is falling apart. Nothing going on here. Nothing actually adds up. There's no cause and effect to all this stuff, Aaron.
Who can answer such a speculative question, Wes? I mean, how did it all go wrong? It's like the comics industry. Nobody knows. It just happened. It's so crazy. Everything's fine, though. Everything's fine.
A bunch of random events that had nothing to do with each other conspired against everybody.
Yep, just crazy random happenstance. Nothing can be done. There's nothing to be learned from it. No takeaways. We're fine. We're all fine here now. How are you?
The recent salary gains secured in the new minimum basic agreement, or MBA, are helpful but pale in comparison to the residuals that writers receive from working on the type of long-running shows that boasted 24-episode seasons and were the bedrock of broadcasting before streaming. Writers at my stage a generation ago would have had much, much more money in the banks as an experienced showrunner. The fact that our earnings up and down the ranks have diminished, and the fact that we can't rely on residuals to support us through these lean periods, people are in total survival mode. Even though we've made gains through the last 2 strikes, they don't add up to what it used to be for veteran writers. But then did you really make any gains in the last 2 strikes? It feels like you made yourself unemployed.
Yeah, they shot themselves in the foot. It's like, look, I understand that like the model's changing and that residuals are going away. And I understand that sucks. But the market changes. That's what happens. And so you're still trying to hold on to old deals based on technology that has moved on. This comes from an industry where a lot of these Hollywood people were mocking like coal miners and things like that and saying, "Oh, learn to code," when they were shutting the mines down. It's like, now this is a livelihood. And you guys were very quick to say like, well, you need to march on with technology, but you don't want that to apply to you. The delivery system, the way that people watch things has changed. And should there be a fair deal for writers? Should there be a fair deal for actors? Absolutely. But based on the way that the viewing habits have changed, based on the way that the advertising changes, you might have to change with it. And you don't want to do that. You want to still be able to make the same living. That's not the way any industry works, sadly. So you can't just hold on to it. It's like, I'm sure a carpenter would love it if he built a table and then every time that table was used, he got a residual. It's not the way it works. Obviously people are making money, on these shows and so there should be some sort of residuals paid. But when they can't prove that anybody really cares or that anybody's really watching and they're not held to that accountability, I mean, what do you expect to get? Well,
it's also not only affecting Hollywood with writers and directors and people working on the stages and all that kind of stuff, all the behind the scenes people. It's affecting people like you. You guys used to sell toys, with Frankensons on a certain day every single week at an outdoor market. And basically with nobody in Hollywood really having many jobs right now, all that market dried up. A lot of people are getting screwed over by this.
Yeah, a lot of comic book stores in the Hollywood area are closing down. In a market where shops were already closing down, but it's affected so many different industries because there's catering, there's all the crew, everybody who works in Hollywood who isn't part of these big contracts, who isn't part of these big strikes, they're all suffering, and so their money is all down, which affects restaurant workers. It affects everybody who is part of that ecosystem, and it's definitely affected toy sales. California is already so expensive to live in because of our idiot politicians and the idiots that vote for them, and our stupid governor.
Can you actually think of a single existence where going full board DEI, going full board ESG ever actually helped an industry? Because it feels like it's destroyed this one.
No, I made this point the other day on Twitter because because all I had to do was basically Twitter and watch TV because I couldn't get off the couch. I was so sick. They put out this new Star Wars Outlaws game and they said like it's the first female lead in a Star Wars game. First of all, that's objectively untrue. There have been several female leads in Star Wars games before, so it's another marketing lie. But I pointed out, I understand why they would want to put out this lie if it was proven to move the needle ever at all, but it does not. So why do you continue to lie when that lie stands to gain you nothing? You're going to gain nothing from this lie. In fact, you're probably going to drive people away because they're going to roll their eyes and go, here we go. Because you're not talking about whether or not the game is any good. You're not talking about why people should play it. You're just touting the fact that it's the first woman in lead of a Star Wars game. No one gives a shit. We've had nothing but female-led Star Wars since Kathleen Kennedy took over. It's not new. It's not interesting, and it doesn't put butts in the seats. So why are you doing it? So no, all this ESG, all this DEI, all it does is it gets some clapping seals like the hens clucking over at the Mary Sue. It gets them to slap their their feathers together and make a big deal about it. But it does not move a single unit. Just like their boycotts don't prevent people from buying it. We saw Hogwarts Legacy just absolutely crush it. They're continually going after J.K. Rowling on Twitter, and she keeps getting big money deals, and she keeps getting signed up like they're going to develop her Christmas book now into something. And you know why? It's because she makes money. You guys don't generate any money. All you guys generate is complaints, and companies are pivoting back towards profit, and they're starting to ignore you. And thank God for that.
And it does appear that the untouchables, the people that you could not hold accountable to any type of failure, the people on the marginalized stack and all that, it's affecting them as well. Kito Shimizu has worked steadily since breaking into the industry in 2010, with credits that include Being Human, Arrow, and showrunning Legends of Tomorrow. She was told by her reps that networks and streamers would begin starting again after the calendar turned 2024. It's been 3 months and no one can get anything sold, she says, as she juggles 5 different projects, all of them based on IP, with the hopes that one will eventually find a buyer. For writers who are trying to pay their bills, it's really scary because we only make money if things sell. As a showrunner who is a queer woman of color, and I can't get work, that's saying a lot. It's very frustrating. Could not believe that she's not getting work because she has all those identifiers next to her name that in the past had guaranteed she would get work, whether things were successful or not.
So the qualifiers next to her name should be what has she worked on and whether or not it was successful and whether it was well received and whether it made money. Those should be the only qualifiers that matter. But which seasons of Arrow? Which ones did she work on? Did she work on the ones that sucked? I've watched Legends of Tomorrow. That show sucked. So
that's the showrunner on Legends of Tomorrow. What happened on Legends of Tomorrow by the end?
Oh, the whole team was gay. It was a gay show.
Bastardized every single character, their origin, everything they stood for, and it just turned into an LGBTQ slice of life show disguised as a superhero show.
Yeah,
I wonder why it failed.
It's not what people came in for. They came in for a superhero show. You can do your LGBT slice of life show, but it shouldn't be a superhero show with a huge budget. Because you have to do superhero stuff. That's not going to work. So, you have to do those things smaller because they appeal to a very small audience, and if they can even find an audience. So, this idea that you're going to cram your agenda into everything, that's part of why you fail. And you can tell that she's all about agenda. As a queer woman of color, I can't find work. No, because the market is correcting itself. It's pivoting back towards people that can deliver and not just check boxes. And granted, we know that there's still a lot of that going on in Hollywood, and they'll continue to lose money as long as they do it. But, look, I'm not saying you shouldn't have work, but get good. Get good at what you do.
And that's basically why the CW Arrowverse ends up failing over time anyway, Aaron, because all those shows start out as one thing, but by the time they hit their 3rd season, it's something completely different. And it's like Archie or something. It's crazy what they do every single time. I'm glad they're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that the CW universe is dead. And I didn't used to be this way. I didn't used to root for things to fail. But now I root for terrible things to fail so that we can hasten getting good things again. I want to return to good things. I want Star Wars to go away completely. I want the Acolyte to be so bad that it just kills the franchise and it's radioactive and they just put it away because I'm so sick of this Disney Star Wars. I'm so sick of seeing it. I'm so sick of hearing about it advertised. I'm sick of shills talking about it on Twitter and coming into my timeline before I have to remember to go back to set it back to following instead of just feeding me, whatever. I'm tired of it. It needs to go away. It needs to heal. And maybe by the time it's ready to be brought back out of mothballs, there'll be talented people who are ready to work on it again.
This might be one of the great fallouts of these writer strikes and the concessions that the studios made. Because before this happened, they had already greenlit a 2nd season of A League of Their Own, which had terrible ratings. No one cared about it. No one watched it. It wasn't being supported, but it was cheap. So they were just going to make another season. And now they had to go back and look at it and you know what? It doesn't actually warrant being made. So now I do think we're not just going to get a bunch of shit out there, because it hits all the right check boxes, that it actually has to have an audience that exists that wants to support it.
Yeah, I can't wait for the announcement that Shang-Chi 2 has been killed because nobody wants it. There's not enough people that care about it. I can't wait till that happens. Pivot back towards profit. Start making shows again. The problem is everybody got so caught up in, we just need content. We need content. It was no longer about art. It was no longer about making a show that entertained. It was just, we just need stuff to put in front of people's eyeballs so that there's continually something new on this streaming service. Well, we don't want to just eat the slop. There's a lot of us that have a little bit more of a refined palate. Sure, you're always going to have your people out there that were like, Ahsoka was great. You're always going to have those idiots out there who don't understand story, don't understand character, and will just watch somebody walk up steps for 20 minutes, and because they're in a Jedi robe, they feel like they were entertained. Unfortunately, that's not the majority of your audience. The majority of the audience is more discerning, and you're going to have to start making content for them. Not content. I'm sorry. You're going to have to start making entertainment for them.
Now, you certainly brought up Star Wars here a couple of times, and there's probably no greater example of why all this stuff is happening. Even Forbes is admitting that Disney has taken a loss on Star Wars. Box office profits generated by Disney's Star Wars movies have fallen $2.8 billion short of covering the media giant's purchase of the sci-fi saga's creator, Lucasfilm. According to analysis of recently filed financial statements, all the stars aligned when The Force Awakens, the first film in the new series, was released in 2015. According to industry analyst Box Office Mojo, it grossed a staggering $2.1 billion, causing Disney to commission 2 spin-off movies as well as 2 sequels that were already planned. However, as the series continued, there was a disturbance in the Force due to an over-reliance on computer-generated effects and a lack of gritty, quirky characters who made the original movies smash hits. They still won't admit why it failed, but they at least admitted that it was failed. We're making progress here, Aaron.
They're still running cover for Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi. Oh, it's so funny. Oh, an over-reliance on computer-generated effect. Yeah, that's what did it. Yeah, because when we all saw Last Jedi, we were like, man, that story was great. But there was so many computer-generated things, I couldn't focus on what a great story it was. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. No, the franchise was placed in the hands of an idiot. Kathleen Kennedy. She tried to transform it into something it wasn't. She tried to make it the antithesis of why Disney wanted to buy it in the first place, which was they wanted more boy brands in their portfolio. So with Marvel and Star Wars, they thought they had that. And then she tried to turn it into a girls brand. She tried to make it, like, well, if we can just get girls into it. Girls were always into it to the degree that they were going to be into it. You can't socially engineer people to be interested in things that they're not. That's not the way that it works. We've seen it with comics. That erroneous poll, you and Doc talked about it on one of your other videos, that you came out that said like half the audience for superhero comics are women. Just because they clicked on a poll. I like comic books, and so all of a sudden the industry was like, well, we need to do more stuff for women. Well, if the poll were correct, you already have half of that audience. So why do you need to then try to re-engineer the wheel? Clearly what you're doing is working, but that's not what they learned from it. And that's not what Kathleen Kennedy went in with. She was like, well, we're going to make all, these all girl power stories. And so boys checked out. Boys are like, oh, I don't like this anymore. This isn't for me. You stated very clearly who your audience was, the audience that you wanted, just like comics did. You guys pointed and you said, that's the audience we want. And the audience you had said, okay. And they left. And then you were like, where is everybody? Because none of this new audience that you claimed was, just waiting in the wings. Turns out they didn't exist. Good job.
Yeah, and a $2.8 billion haircut is nothing to sneeze at. And a great reason, a bright, shining example to everybody out there that this shit does not work. You cannot go into a franchise like Star Wars with an agenda other than to entertain and honor Star Wars and make great Star Wars entertainment for Star Wars fans. If you come in there with another agenda, you will go off in the wrong direction and you will cost everybody money. We're seeing the exact same thing happening, obviously, with the MCU right now. And we've also seen other franchises. It's just gotten weird, and they are learning some very hard lessons. And this is why all you fuckers are out of a job. And this is why you put a ton of other people out of jobs.
Yeah, congratulations. And people like me who've been sitting here and screaming from the rooftops, these properties need to be handled with care. They need to be put in the hands of people who actually, value what they are and understand what their appeal is. And instead, they just hand them off to people. Like, do you think that god awful She-Ra cartoon that was on Netflix, do you think that started out as a She-Ra cartoon? I'm sure that it didn't. I know I've been told that it didn't. I've been told that the showrunners went in there with a pitch for a show that was all all theirs. Netflix was like, well, I don't know if we want to take a chance on this, but hey, we can give you She-Ra, and then you can gut She-Ra and take the skin of She-Ra and stretch it over the thing that you want to do. And so, because that's a recognizable brand. And so that's what happened. That show never did well. You know, people say like, oh, it had multiple seasons. They were all done at once and it got broken up. That's how Netflix works. None of those seasons were ever successful. That's why you don't have any more. That's why you're never getting a movie. That's why the doll line failed. You know, all the merch didn't sell. But this is what happens. You take a property, like look at Thundercats Roar, which I got some heat online for saying it looked like trash. That was a fun time. You know, that was one of my many cancellations, Wes. I said this show looks like trash. And the problem with doing a show like this is that this is the way that the suits understand it. They go, hey, Thundercats is a recognized brand. Let's do Thundercats. And they try to turn Thundercats into something it's not. They made that goofy, stupid Teen Titans Go ripoff with Thundercats. Thundercats fans didn't like it. It generated no new audience whatsoever. And now suits look at Thundercats and they go, oh, well, Thundercats failed. It's a property nobody's interested in anymore. No, people are interested in Thundercats, but you've got to give them the Thundercats that they want. You've got to give them an updated version like they did in 2011. Which only got canceled because Lego came in with a cheaper show, and the network was just like, oh, a boys show. That's all we need. Doesn't matter what it is. Same thing with like the He-Man 2011 show that everybody loved. It was killed by poor toy distribution. There's a lot of reasons that these shows fail, even when they're successfully done. So what you need is kind of a brand overseer who comes in and not only is like on the creative side, but who understands the merchandising side as well. That's why Star Wars was successful for so long. Lucas not only understood the creative, but he understood the relationship with selling merchandise. So that's what you need. You don't need a pure suit from Netflix telling you this is what we need to do, and then the toys don't sell. You don't need a toy guy, ruining your show because they don't know how to distribute the toys, even though your show is really good. What you need that kind of, I hate to use buzzwords, but you need that kind of synergy between the different people that are representing the brand.
I do want to say thank you very much to Aaron Sparrow. And if you're asking yourself, I could use more common sense like I just got from Wes and Aaron. Well, we've got 2 more hours of common sense exclusive to Thinking Critical Patreon. If you haven't checked that one out, right now there is a free trial if you would like to go see that. We have a podcast every single week called The Geek Fix, and Aaron and I have a lot of fun.